Dear colleagues in learning, welcome to a journey of yearning for learning. We started together trying to use wisdom. There is a current way of starting by asking who you are and what you expect from the course. I will avoid it because one of the objectives of the course is to help all of us discover who we are and maybe answer the second question of what we expect from the course. In the ancient Indian wisdom tradition, we start with the mantra Sahana Vavatu. I will interpret this mantra as follows. I will learn from your questions and you may learn from my experience. I will also learn from the answers that the course instructor will give to your questions. I personally claim no knowledge and instead join you today in seeking it. A good way to begin is to start at the beginning. So this lecture is titled Ab initio. It begins with some questions. We will create an environment where we can ask the right question, for only that can give us the right answer. This is the basic methodology followed throughout the course. Please do not take any statement as an opinion, but take it as a suggestion for a question to be asked. So let's start with the first question. What is expected from a PhD student? A PhD student should be at the cutting edge of research, or preferably he should create the cutting edge of research. This brings us to the question of what is the need for a cutting edge? If you cut a fruit, you can eat the fruit. If you cut a human body, you can cure it. Therefore, the knife which is used as an example of cutting edge can be given either to a trained mind or to an untrained mind. In the hands of a trained mind, a knife can cure, like a surgeon cures. In the hands of an untrained mind, it can even lead to murder. Are the various social problems that we are facing today like a murder of society, a murder of the academic concepts that we have learned? So what can prevent that? Therefore, it is important when you think of a topic of research to also think of who will be putting the research to use. How will it be used? When will it be used? Where will the research be used? Why is this question important? Let us take a simple example of splitting an atom. Will a research of splitting an atom be used to light a bulb in a village, or will it be used to blow a bomb? That is the relevance of the question. And therefore, this is what should guide our research way and its application. When we look at research, we should also look at another word which is part of research, hidden in research, which is search. Is search the mother of research? Therefore, we will look at two concepts that influence progress and well-being: search and research. Both can create well-being as well as economic progress. In day-to-day language, when we think of search, we think of it in very trivial terms, like you have lost a pen and you search for it. Or if someone tells you to search an answer, you go to Google, you type a few words and you get an answer. So the concept of search in our day-to-day use has been trivialized, so to say. But what is the real difference between research and search? Let us look at research. Is research describing what happens? For example, research can describe that the sky is blue because blue light has a shorter wavelength. But search is asking why it happens. Why does blue light have a shorter wavelength? That would be search. Let's look at another example of research. Electromagnetic waves scatter off particles much smaller than their wavelength with an intensity proportional to wavelength raised to the power -4. This describes. It doesn't tell why it happens. For example, search would ask questions like, why is space three-dimensional and time one-dimensional? And we look at space-time as a continuum. Search would imply that are there any truly fundamental laws or only a succession of better and better approximate laws? What are humans generally interested in? Let's start with that. Generally, humans are interested in matter. Then they discover that it is activated by energy. Now, study of energy and matter becomes physics. Along with chemistry and biology, it forms a trinity of sciences. People try to discover if there is a role of human mind which interacts with these. So when we look at the world, can we explain all that is happening using a simple set of laws? Will that not be a fantastic search? Ian Whitehead says that education should begin with romance. So this is a very romantic idea. Professor John Baez, mathematical physicist of University of California, gave a talk to Cambridge University Physics Society, where he said, and I quote him, "By fundamental physics, I mean the search," please underline the word search, mean the search for a small set of laws which in principle determine everything we can calculate about the universe. This is a reductionist dream. It is not always practical, but it's very seductive. It invites you to think, to search. It excites you. It makes you interested. It inspires research. So where do we stand in our search for these elusive laws? What do we know? And what are the mysteries which are yet to be discovered? Let's start today's lecture with these. And let me quote him. He says that it's hard to guess which questions we'll answer next, but it helps to know where we stand now. And he lists our best theories of fundamental physics today as, in the standard model, electromagnetic forces, weak forces, force and strong force. In general relativity, there's gravity. Then he further stated that the standard model describes all the forces except gravity using quantum mechanics. General relativity describes gravity ignoring quantum mechanics. That's where we stand. Let's look at the mysteries in the world which remain, which are yet to be resolved. Do they inspire any of us? Do they inspire a set of questions? Let's look at the Fermi paradox. We know that the universe is 92 billion light years in diameter. That's how huge it is. Therefore, the probability of not finding life elsewhere should be almost near zero. Yet, why can't we prove life elsewhere? That's one set of questions. Another set of questions can start from, why are atoms mostly empty spaces? Another set of questions can be, is gravity a particle? If not, what is it? In yet another dimension, we can go and say, how did life begin? Should we look at the primordial soup model? Was RNA more important than DNA at the very beginning? In yet another dimension, we can ask, do we know what dark matter is and what is it made of? There are many questions and many answers which can be sought using instruments in laboratory. Can some answers be found by searching within the mind, not with instruments? And I will try to raise some questions. The first question maybe you may find interesting is, how do some animals migrate? Birds, bees, whales, turtles use the magnetic field. Some tap the Earth's magnetic field using themselves as a compass. Is this within the capability of sense organs? Can humans do similar feats? Another set of questions could come from another dimension, which is there order in chaos? Then the question becomes, can the mind experience that order which is behind chaos? Another dimension could be, do universal forces merge into one force? And then, can we experience that oneness? In another dimension, we can look at the phenomenon of sonoluminescence. How do sound waves make light waves? We know that when we hit water with sound waves, bubbles are formed. These bubbles collapse, emitting light in flashes lasting trillionth of a second. These are all questions which deal with search. The human mind enables both search and research. How did it begin? Is the human mind capable of working in abstract spaces to produce pure science? When we know nothing, and now we think from that position of knowing nothing, how do we in abstraction think of an idea, think of a concept? Can looking back at such an experience of creation inspire our topic of research and our methodology of research today and our ethics of research? In this age, in this time, in this class, and within this set of students and colleagues in learning. If we identify this first science, which is purely in abstraction, and which was done thousands of years ago, and which has not changed, unlike many scientific theories which have changed, would such a process of search, which came up with such a scientific analysis thousands of years, which has lasted for thousands of years, and is used after thousands of years, can that give us some clue of what search and research can be? Can it show the capability of search that humans have? So let us look at that. An early expression of search was the human language. We research languages, but language itself was a result of human search. Because after food, clothing, and shelter, a search began for expression. So, the first expression of scientific thought was the human language. Many have been created and some have been forgotten. Today, 6,500 languages are spoken in the world. In the Roman Empire, Latin was spoken. It is largely forgotten. The Egyptian script has been forgotten. The Italian languages, the Italian civilization languages are largely forgotten. So let's look at what the languages emerge from. If we look at the emergence of languages as drawn by experts, Indo-European languages seem to be the beginning of uh, the basis from where all languages have emerged. So definitely there may be something to explore in the Indian way of looking at languages and the scientific thought that inspired it. And why are we considering language all the time? Because the importance of the word, which is what language formulated, is there not only in the Indian tradition, but it is also, you can find a mention of it in the Bible relating to creation. The Bible says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." I personally am surprised by the similarity in the word Amen used by Christianity, Amin used by Islam, and Om used by the ancient Indian civilization. The letters A and M have a surprising commonality. And why do I raise this question? Because Nikola Tesla says that if you wish to understand the universe, think of only three things: energy, frequency, and vibration. Was primal energy the cause of vibration with the frequency, which led to the beginning of the universe? Is that a question that we can look at? So we understand that the importance of the word as the first expression of scientific search has a valid basis. So let's look at one of the oldest languages, which is Sanskrit. Many subjects have been explored using it. Max Muller and scholars globally have researched its depth. In fact, Max Muller went to the extent of writing to Darwin and saying that I admire the hard work you have done and the academic rigor that you have got to your model. But your philosophy is totally mechanical. I reject your philosophy because of the evolution of language. He said that human language can never develop from animals or animal languages. Sanskrit is still in use, though its use is restricted. So let's look at Sanskrit. Could a language that evolved from animals be computer savvy even after thousands of years? Tom Goldberg, as chief technical officer, says that the way Panini, one of the fathers of Sanskrit grammar, structures the Sanskrit alphabet, it reads like a systems code. Immanuel Kasanovich, who writes on Christianity, has a book of collection of objects in US National Museum, where he describes Yajurved as a book of sacrificial formulae. It's very surprising why Sanskrit mantras are called formulae in many places, because formulae is something which you find in mathematics. So, is there a deep mathematical basis of Sanskrit mantras? This is the question we need to ask. Panini's Ashtadhyayi, is likened to the Turing machine by the Britannica.com, which is an idealized mathematical model that reduces the logical structure of any computing device to its essentials. So we come to the concept that obviously such a language could not come from the idea of research. There was nothing to research. It came from an inner search. So what is this inner search that led to development of such a scientific language? Can we examine the idea of inner search very closely? Can we look at what it did to a scientist like Einstein? Stephen Hawking, we know, didn't look before the Big Bang because he said there was no concept of time and space then. But this inner search in our ancient Indian tradition looks at the time period before that. As Professor Stephen Barr of Delaware University points out, there is a difference between the origin of things and the beginning of things. The beginning of the play, say Hamlet of Shakespeare, he says, is in Act 1, Scene 1. But where was the origin of Hamlet? The origin of Hamlet was in the mind of the author, that is Shakespeare. So is there a role of the mind? And can we give an example of the mind, how it works? Can we look at, for example, the reason why the ancient texts, without having the modern instruments or the modern thinking that is currently available, how did they discover the concept of zero infinity or give the time taken per sidereal revolution of Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn so very precisely? How did they calculate it thousands of years ago? Was it because of research or search? Would you like to develop these kind of capabilities, answer these kind of questions, get inspired by this kind of search and research? To look at the ethics with which they did the search, to look at the discipline with which they did it. Let's look at the Einstein-Bohr debate. Bohr's core logic may have been superior, but Einstein had an inner search. He said, God doesn't play dice. So can the truth have more than one dimension? Einstein just could not agree to Bohr on this simple principle, because when he asked the question to himself, he says, no, God doesn't play dice. Maybe if Einstein had looked at certain concepts of ancient Indian philosophy and the idea of God explained therein, maybe his answer would have been different. Maybe the debate he would have taken forward in a different way. Maybe our understanding in the world as accepted today of quantum physics would be totally different. If we get time and the opportunity, maybe we will look at some of these issues of how our ancient wisdom will impact the debate of Niels Bohr, Albert Einstein, our current understanding of quantum physics, and therefore what implication should it have on the way we live life. Because that is what ultimately any research or search should do, guide us in the way we live life. Niels Bohr was seeking the truth. Just because Einstein used the word God, it doesn't mean only he's seeking the truth. Bohr experienced evidence in one way. He used logic. Einstein wanted to check that logic within himself to match his inner conviction. So he was working in 2 dimensions. So can truth have more than one dimension? Or can we say that the same truth can be seen from 2 different perspectives? Can there be 2 views of one truth? Difficult to believe. But if you look at it in a particular way, there may be some sense in the old Indian Sanskrit shloka, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Let's take the case of an onion. If you cut an onion from top to bottom, it gives a particular view. If you cut it from left to right, it will give another view. Is this an example that there is one truth, but there can be 2 ways of seeing that same truth? So what is it that purifies our search in science for truth? Because science is about seeking the truth, and scientific attitude is about seeking the truth. Therefore, not only do we want to know what purifies our search in science, but also what purifies the inner scientific search, what we call the ethics of research. This will lead us to the first lesson into the science of investigation. Ideally, we should pause here for a debate to see all answers that all of you have. But since this is a recording as I am speaking from an overseas location, the recording will be paused and I will try to join your questions and add mine to it to see the answers from the course instructor. However, what should this answer lead to? In my opinion, the answer of the way of purifying the inner search is by having a unity of all the instruments available to the human mind. The first instrument that we have is thought. The second instrument we have is the capacity to express it in word, how the language grew. We discussed the evolution of Sanskrit and what the unity between thought and word did to create a scientific language which is relevant even thousands of years later in a mathematical world of computers. So the unity of thought and word enables us to search for truth and find the truth not only about what we are searching, but also the truth about who we are. Therefore, unity of thought and word should be followed in life. Is there a scientific basis for this? And is there an experiential basis for this? Well, if we look at it scientifically, if we wear colored glasses with a colored tint, will it give the actual colors that exist that we can see without the glasses? So, when we have a unity of thought and word, it removes the tint of the glasses in the inner search. Therefore, what is the first lesson of the scientific search, of any scientific search using ancient wisdom? Speak the truth. Until we follow that, we will not be having either ethics in research, or our research will not be complete. It will only be an academic practice to get a degree. But will the degree of progress of society increase after that degree? It may not. The current state of society after so many PhDs are coming out and joining the world? Has this increase in number of PhDs helped society achieve a social balance? Could it restrict the spread of a pandemic? Could it prevent an economic recession? How do we judge society and the result of our research by? That becomes a question. Therefore, one of the lessons that everybody is requested to follow while doing the course is to speak the truth and follow righteous conduct. There will be a procedure which the course instructor will share with you, which is totally voluntary, but it is advisable to produce good research through using it. But has this been the value of truth? Has it been in the personal experience of some people who are not saints or rishis or people like Jesus? If we look in contemporary literature, there is a Nobel laureate who's a poet, and he's from India, Rabindranath Tagore. What is the science of wisdom? If we look at the science of wisdom, he says it is where the words come from the depth of truth. And how is it put into action? Where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection. So truth is, what is the truth of human beings? Goodness. And striving to stretch towards perfection is a search for excellence. So excellence filled with goodness is what is the object of our research and search. Now, what is truth? Truth is an experience. The current education ideas in the world basically are, for many people, relying on the experience of the sense organs. Some philosophers agree that an object is not what it is, but what the mind sees it as and mind experiences it as. Wisdom is about improving the quality of that experience. The Shankaracharya, for example, says that cold logic cannot prove that the fire is cold. You have to feel the fire and you know that it is hot, that it can burn. By logic, you cannot prove anything. A textbook, PhD, academic search without practical experience will not be useful either to the individual or to the society. The Buddha also says, do not believe what I say till you experience it. So has the PhD student experienced what his research is through his inner search? Without caring for his, you can say, name or fame, like Einstein said, I don't agree with Bohr. Would you have the confidence of asking yourself, what is your inner search? And saying, what I have researched, does it tally with my inner experience about this question? These are the issues that decide the ethics of research and the methodology of research, both. In the 1850s, a concept of scientific materialism took over academics and made much of academics value neutral. We will discuss this if we get time and the opportunity in another lecture. But today, classical physics and scientific materialism are both being looked. Academicians want to look beyond it. There is a manifesto for a post-materialistic materialist science. There's a manifesto for that, and you can find it in opensciences.org. I'll quote from it. It says that faith in this ideology, that is scientific materialism, as an exclusive explanatory framework for reality has compelled scientists to neglect the subjective dimension of human experience. This has led to a severely distorted and impoverished understanding of ourselves and our place in nature. So, what would be the understanding from, say, ancient Indian wisdom's point of view? As far as ancient wisdom's view of creation is concerned, it may not be at a perfunctory level, at the first level, very different from what we believe. We believe that in ancient Indian tradition, that creation is nothing but a process of atomization and reatomization of energy converting to matter and matter converting to energy, and this is a continuous process. And secondly, it is an ever expanding process. So as far as this view is concerned, there should not be any problem. However, we come to the next view, which is when the human and the human mind enters this physical world and this world of classical physics and scientific materialism. Here it is not just discovery, but it is self-discovery which will improve the quality of experience. Because here we show that the human being can be directed either towards the animal instincts or to find his own inner nature. He can go on either of these routes. The world is rotating and is on the axis of a balance of nature. And this balance of nature is found in the plant and animal world. And the plant and animal world, they are moved by their swabhava or their inner nature, their inner instinct, in which direction the creeper grows. The inner instinct of of animals to be in a herd to protect themselves. So there's an inner instinct which leads to survival. But human beings have something different, ancient Indian wisdom says, which is the mind. And this mind has a capability of inquiry. So the fulcrum is the mind, which revolves on the axis of discrimination. And discrimination is given by the intellect. The intellect guides the mind on what is right and what is wrong. It helps to modify instincts and the inner nature when they deviate from the true self. So this is where the view of the ancient Indian tradition is different from the classical physics or scientific materialism. Now, where is the ability to improve the quality of experience in ancient wisdom? The ability comes from the understanding of the basis of the universe. Classical physics, scientific materialism look upon matter as the basis of the universe. They study matter. And ancient Indian tradition looks at primal energy. So its very basis of exploration, its basis of research is different. Therefore, it comes to different set of conclusions about human beings, their capacity, how to use the primal energy. So that leads to personal development, that leads to a different level of experience which may be a little beyond the sense organs also. So let us look at primal energy, which is the basic focus of ancient wisdom's research. What is the first question to ask about primal energy, which is activating everything in the universe? It has one quality. And what is that one quality? That everything operates under laws that science seeks to search and research. And what are those laws? These are multiple laws. But all of them, everything in creation is following some such law. And this is the law, this is that which is leading to balance. The cycles of nature, the cycles of weather, there are so many cycles, the nitrogen cycle, so many cycles are there. So what are all of them creating? The result of all these cycles and everything is a balance, because everything is following its inner nature or swabhava. And this nature of primal energy by ancients was called as Dharma. Therefore, in the beginning, they said that the first among the rays that came out along with X-rays and all, they said were dharmic rays, which are making everything follow their laws. Therefore, they believe that everything in nature follows its dharma. Then the question comes, are humans part of nature? As a part of nature, what should humans do? The answer is simple. As everything in nature is creating a balance by following dharma or righteous conduct, humans too should follow dharma and, as we decided earlier, speak the truth. Therefore, scientific search and research uses this rule as the basis of all its ethics, its research methodology. That if you do not speak the truth, follow righteous conduct in life, your search and research will be meaningless. That's why the goal of education and the methodology, the ethics of education, and the way research and search should be done is described in a simple shloka, Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara. We expect students who are researchers and interested in ethics and research methodology using ancient wisdom to follow this and practice this not only during the duration of this course, during the duration of their thesis, to see that their results are truly scientific and conform to the inner search and outer research, to get a unity among them, but to follow it in life so that the lifelong learning can lead to their research finding space, finding utility in society. This presentation ends with asking a few questions. Did this presentation influence your research idea? The second question is, should personal ethics guide ethics in research? Can education create ethical persons for society? How can you create habits of personal ethics so that your degree reassures society to trust you with a responsible position, a trust that will never break? Maybe the next session, if it is there, will give a new global context for this approach. It will prove that this approach is no longer a luxury, but a necessity for all of us. Thank you for joining us and the time and attention you have given.